Now we'll go ahead and have the talk on kind of the topic of the day, and it's more about hardy personality. Dr. or Professor Manning, George Manning, and we call him George. So he will be doing it. I will be running the slides.
Let's start out with the whole idea of a critical balance. We've got things that will pull us down. You've got these things that are demands on you, life events, marriages and funerals and new babies and little hassles, like if your car doesn't start or your zipper breaks or handicaps. Maybe you're not really good with the IT or your site's not real good at the moment. And these things can pull you down. But if you've got resources for coping, physical, psychological, economic resources, then you can handle this critical balance. And one of the main things that either pull you down if you don't have the resources or lift you up if you've got them is your mastery of these characteristics of a hardy personality. This concept got going in the late 70s by Susan Cabasa. But come to find out, there's these characteristics that belong to humankind in general. Everybody's got the potential to have them, but hardy personalities have more of them, more of the five, and to a higher degree than do people when they're not hardy. And it's a moving, it could be high or low. And what we want to do is personalize this now by evaluating your own self on the first characteristic. It's on commitment. Thomas Carlyle, the Scottish philosopher, said, "We don't fear death. We know we have to pass. We fear extinction without meaning." We need a purpose in life. And the hardy personality thinks they've got that purpose and they think they're doing the right thing. And that gives them tremendous strength, emotional strength to overcome adversity and persevere. Our lives begin between our ears, and the hardy personality thinks they're doing the right thing. They might be wrong, but they think they are, and it gives them strength. Now, if you're not a full-fledged 20 on that, a good job aid would be for you to do a sojourn, a quo vadis. Where have I been? Where am I now? And where am I going? And a good job aid for that would be to read that book, probably beforehand, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The New York Times did an evaluation of the 10 most influential books on the American people. And number 1 was the Bible. And number 9 was Man's Search for Meaning. And the punchline of this is everybody needs something important yet to be done, not only for mental health, but for survival itself. Frankl wrote his book. He had notes before, but he wrote his book based upon his death camp experiences in Auschwitz and Dachau and so on. And that's when he reaffirmed what he thought, that we need purpose in life. Now, he thought everything we did went down in history, and if that, in that sense, it would be irretrievable. So he'd want people to do what they did for it to be meaningful. I've got a little sample here. It's so human. It's a young girl, and she talks about the fact she was 14 years old. The night her daddy died, he had holes in his shoes, put 2 children out of college, one in college, another in divinity school, and a vision he was able to convey to her as he lay dying in an ambulance that she, a young black girl, could be and do anything, that race and gender are shadows, and that character, self-discipline, determination, attitude, and service are the substance of life. So that picture in her mind would sustain her. Everybody needs something important yet to be done. Now, I ask you to have 4 blank pieces of paper, so very quickly, do it right off the top of your head, but be honest. On each piece of paper, put the name of or the symbol of or a picture of something important to you. When you say this is important, somebody might draw their car, somebody might draw their spouse, somebody might make a cross for a church, somebody make a dollar bill to stand for wealth, somebody might draw a book, but something that is important to you on each of the 4. And it could be a concept, it could be truth, it could be a thing, it could be your house. So then once you do that and you look at those 4, think about it, and I know this isn't true, but let's pretend that it is true and that it's like gravity, and you can only do three. You can't do the fourth. Put it off to the side, and now you've got three things in front of you. Could be your dog, it could be singing, it could be your child, but let's pretend that you can only do two. And I know that's hard to do, but take the third one that's got to go and put it off to the side. And now you've got two things that are very important to you. And so you have to ask yourself, what are you doing about this? And do you know what's important? Yes, but are you behaving accordingly? And the hardy personality behaves accordingly. And he doesn't just know what's important to herself, but she behaves in line with that accordingly. By the way, when I mention books, it's because the three things that will define a human life after basic biology are number one, what we tell ourselves, and number two, the people we're around. Some people will pull us down if given a chance. Some people will lift us up and make our lives great if given a chance. It's kind of an IQ test to surround yourself with people who will lift you up and make your life great and be that way for others too. And also the books we read. And by extension, other forms of media, garbage in, garbage out. So I'll push books here in our talk today. Let's go to the second one, control. And George Bernard Shaw, the Irish playwright, Nobel Prize winner, said, hell is to drift and heaven is to steer. The hardy personality believes this idea fully and seeks, therefore, to be in control of her own life. Not flotsam on the sea of life, but the master of her own destiny. And what gives her legitimacy to this feeling is the fact that she uses good time management principles. So when you think about sense of control and using good time management principles, and you were to self-diagnose yourself at this point in time, it is a moving target. Where are you? 1's low, 20's high. One of your very best stress coping techniques is good time management. And it's as simple as saying what you want to get done, making sure it's in line with your values and your commitments, prioritizing your activities, working on the first things first, and when you achieve it, checking it off. Does anybody in the audience currently do that? You use good time management principles. You prioritize things in line with your values. You got a list of things to do. And when you get it done, you check it off and you get a reinforcement. So if you're not a full-fledged 20 on this, a good book, whatever's the most recent edition of Alan Lakian's How to Get Control of Your Time in Your Life is a good one. Or here's another equally good one, First Things First by Stephen Covey. But the hardy personality lives an examined and committed life, and they use good time management principles, working on first things first, therefore feel in control. The third characteristic of a hardy personality is attitude. And at the turn of the last century, William James said, change your attitude, you'll change your life. And I'll just ask you if you know somebody whose attitude is their own worst enemy. Or do you know somebody whose attitude is their secret to success? This is the reason why hypnosis works and voodoo works and all forms of mind over matter work. If you think something, it'll put you in a mood, which results in behavior, either an upward spiral or a downward spiral. So what the hardy personality does is they things for what they are, but then they accentuate the positive versus the negative, the opportunities versus the problems, the potentialities versus the deficiencies. They've got a positive mental attitude. Rate yourself at this point in time. If you're not a full-fledged 20, a good job aid for you would be this book, Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, past president of American Psychological Association's good book. And he details out that, yes, you do need urge, you need motivation to achieve a lot. And yes, talent counts, skills and abilities, but The real secret to achievement is that you're going to succeed, and that will focus and energize you. You'll see this crisis, the Chinese symbol for crisis. It's got two characters in it, and the top character stands for opportunity, the bottom for danger. And what the hardy personality does is they know they're in a crisis, but they accentuate the positive. I've never seen it done better in words than Charles Swindoll does when he says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude is more important than facts, education, money, what other people think or say or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home, a person's life. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude that we'll embrace for that day. We can't change the past. We can't change what other people do when we're not looking. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we've got, and that's our attitude, he says. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% our attitude about it. You know, I've been teaching, started in 1966, and I look out at these students every year, and the difference between the best and the rest is one word always, and that is attitude. So the hardy personality accentuates the positive. They've got a positive mental attitude that is helpful to everybody, their own selves, and everybody in their world. Again, these are things that are catching. Negativity depresses people. Depressed people will never do good works and achieve their potential. And a positive attitude energizes people. Let's go to the third characteristic of hardy personality is perspective. And they know there's a time for the hot reacting linebacker on defense, but they prefer to be the cool cucumber quarterback on offense. And what allows them to do that is they keep small things small. They know that there's hills worth dying on, but basically they're few and far between. So they keep small things small. Because of that, they don't go through life in states of constant alarm and vigilance, leading to exhaustion and breakdown of their weakest system, whatever it is. No, because they keep small things small. Now, were anybody to have a heart attack or stroke, probably part of their rehab program would be to read this good book, Is It Worth Dying For? By Robert Elliott, 1L1T. I always say, why not read the book first? Now, there's a story he writes. He's a physician, 44 years old, has a heart attack, and feels lucky to survive, and asks, what's worth dying for? Very few things are. There are some things, but very few things are. If I could just say one saying or maxim that means so much to people all these years, we only had one. This would be it, I think, from St. Francis of Assisi, who said, give us serenity to accept what can't be changed, courage to change what should be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. So, keep things in perspective. Ask yourself what person trips your trigger, causing extra wear and tear, too fast aging, disease, early death, because you're not keeping things in perspective. A bridge from perspective to the last, which I think is the most important of all the characteristics of a hardy personality, and that is love. I'd like to make you to look at the grapefruit syndrome. And I'll just ask if anybody's got primary relationship. This will mean something to you if you read the grapefruit syndrome. And it's a matter of keeping things in perspective, small things small in relationships. So on relationships, rate yourself at this point in time. 1's low, 20's high. And what the hardy personality does is they give TLC, tender loving care, and they do it with oldsters and youngsters, and they do it with animals. They do it in the workplace, the hospital, the home place. When in doubt, they always do the loving thing. a loving thing. And of course, as we sow, so we reap. The loving person becomes beloved, and it's got a good physiological effect for everybody. If you're not a full-fledged 20 on this, and again, these are moving targets. Somebody might say, I used to be low on this, but I swung by the pet store and got a turtle. And that's my caring relationship. I'm high on it. Or I swung by the bookstore and got that still number one best book on the subject of love from an intellectual standpoint, The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. And I always like to ask folks, is love important to you? And most everybody say yes. And then if I ask, have you read that good book, The Art of Loving? Chances are they haven't. And it would be a worthy read. Add up your scores. You've been rating yourself. And what you're going to get is a total score. And then what's good about this, that you have a score, is that there's no curve. And it's you got to deal with it. It takes a full-fledged 90 to 100 to embody the characteristics of a hardy personality, your model of psychological strength and effective living for everybody watching, colleagues, friends, family. 80 to 89 is very good, and your life is characterized by an effective pattern of personal commitment and sense of control, a positive attitude, balanced perspective, and caring relationships. They're kind of an example of right living. 70, 79 is average. And you have to ask yourself, when in your life have you ever been satisfied with average? That's not your way. When you went after an education, not an average one. When you went after a career, not an average one. When you went after a mate, not an average one. And if you're average on this, you're probably suffering from cognitive dissonance, and you won't be able to stand it until you can do what is necessary to raise your score. 60 to 69 is D for deficiencies. Medical people know that it's a lot like having a fever. If you don't address the fever, you could go to 59 and below, which is failing. Now, this has nothing to do with social success and economic success and all the other areas of life that we want to be successful in, but it has everything to do with living to tell about it. And so what you want to do is whatever it takes to stay high or improve. And the characteristics of a hardy personality. Those aren't the only books, but those are good books that can help you stay high or improve. It's a reminder that the three determinants of a human life, what they are, you need to be your own best friend. And you might look in the mirror and say, you got your problems, but you're okay. As opposed to, oh, you're too this and not enough that. So you got to be your own best friend and use positive self-talk, and do surround yourself with the people who love and care for you and be that way for others. And then, of course, do read, do view, do whatever it takes to feed your mind with positive versus negative material. People ask, what are the three secrets to happiness? Well, here they are. Number one is you got to marry the right person. Nothing's more stressful than a miserable relationship. Number two is you got to do the work that you love and do what you were made to do. And number three is to count your blessings. We've all got blessings if we'll just pause and count our blessings. It might be the fact that we have our health, or the fact that we do have work that is meaningful. But those are the three secrets to happiness, the main secrets. This is Nancy's shoe story. The punchline is you never know when you might need these coping techniques that have been shared. Years ago, 1970, at Northern Kentucky University, we used to have parties with the faculty and the staff and the students. And I went to this infamous Christmas party, and there was a young lady there who had a little too much to drink, the life of the party. And I said, well, I'll make sure she gets home safe and sound. So I did. And I got her up into her apartment safe and sound. And when I got home, my wife, Nancy, was a little hungry. And I said, well, sure, pop in the car. Let's go. We'll get a bite to eat. So she got in the car and we were driving north of Cincinnati at that time, past one of her favorite stores. It was Christmas time and they had a big sale sign. And she was looking out her window. And as she was looking out her window, I looked out also. And I glanced on the floor. And on the floor, there was a toe of a woman's shoe sticking out from underneath the seat. And I said, uh-oh. So while she was looking out her window, I unrolled my window and I threw the shoe out. And I kept on driving. I got down to the restaurant and I parked. And Nancy took a long time getting out of the car. And I couldn't understand what took her so long. And I looked in and said, "What's the matter, honey?" And she said, "You seen my shoe?" So the punchline is you never know when you might need your coping techniques, characteristics of a hardy personality.